Hello. Can you give us an introduction on who you are?
Yeah, my name is Drew Bent. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of schoolhouse.world and one of the co-founders.
So, how did you co-create Schoolhouse?
Good question. So in 2012, I was a software engineering intern at Khan Academy. And at that time, Sal wrote a book called The One World Schoolhouse. And you'll see this name sounds a little familiar. And the book was about many things, but one of the things he talked about in the book was the power of the potential of a peer tutoring platform, a global peer tutoring platform. And fast forward 8 or 9 years during the pandemic, I'm now a teacher at Khan Lab School. And Sal calls and says, we're thinking of finally doing this peer tutoring, platform. We've had this idea for a while. Mariah's built the first version of this platform, and we'd love to test it out in Khan Lab School and have the students in the school be some of the first tutors and learners. And so that's when I became, a tutor on the platform. And then later I found myself doing more and more on the platform beyond just tutoring. And then by the end of the summer, this was last year, I decided to go full time on it, and we turned what was this volunteer project into a nonprofit, and now I've been growing it ever since.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really nice. Even though we're still in the early stages, it's really nice to see it's like almost like a baby and watching it grow.
Oh, it's definitely a baby. It hasn't reached toddler stage yet.
All right, thank you. What has been the most difficult part about this ed tech startup? So, not everything is perfect. Obviously, there are, I'm sure, hiccups along the way.
Lots of challenges. We're still in the early days of Schoolhouse. One of the key challenges is actually trying to understand the learners who are on our platform using us. We spend a lot of time talking to the tutors on the platform because we're in a Slack with the entire tutor community. But sometimes when we're trying to design features to improve the experience for learners, sometimes it can actually be hard to reach the learners. And so constantly trying to understand who are the people who are benefiting and can benefit from schoolhouse.world on the learner side is just a continual challenge, but one that I'm excited to be working on with the team.
Right, because I'm sure there's that barrier between the screen and both like learner and tutor, so you don't exactly know who your learner is compared to in person.
Yeah, it's not, I previously was in a school setting, and in school, who's the student, you can just go talk to them in the corner of the room and say like, are you learning? How's this going? In a virtual setting, we have learners from 100 plus countries. It's not as easy as just walking over and asking them. Sometimes it can actually be hard to reach our learners.
Now, what does COO stand for, and what are your roles as one? I know many people who are working at Schoolhouse may know what this is, but for those who don't know what this is, can you please explain it?
That's a good question. COO stands for Chief Operating Officer, and at different companies, that can mean very different things. At Schoolhouse, what it means is that I'm running the day-to-day operations of the Schoolhouse nonprofit. It's a 7-person product team. And so I work closely with the team on everything from engineering work to product work to design work to training our tutors to helping run the community. And the way I really think of my role is I'm in service of every other team member and every other volunteer at Schoolhouse. And I'm just there to kind of accelerate everyone else's work and help them accomplish all the great things they want to do.
Awesome. Um, Let me see. Post-COVID era, what do you think the future of Schoolhouse will be?
The future of Schoolhouse post-COVID. Well, I on one hand, we did start Schoolhouse during the pandemic. But on the other hand, these ideas have been around since, I mentioned I was at Khan Academy. That was in 2012. Sal wrote a book called The One World Schoolhouse, which is where our name comes from. So these ideas have been around for a while. And so I think what's going to happen is, hopefully people will be going back to in-person school. Hopefully that's coming up very shortly. But the time that people are spending online, people were always spending time online if they were connected to the internet. but a lot of that time was spent doing things that are asynchronous, watching videos and reading, Wikipedia pages and all of these things. And my hope is that now that time that people are spending online, it may not be any larger than it was before, but the fraction of that time that people are spending online that's actually spent engaging with other learners and other people from around the world in live synchronous interactions, such as, online tutoring sessions on Schoolhouse, but many other things as well. My hope is that, it's less of an isolating experience for students. And so they have more of this sort of live synchronous time. I think people are used to it now because, they've been through COVID, they've had to, done live synchronous interactions. So now when we go back to school, people will be more used to it.
What are your thoughts on Schoolhouse as a community? I know you've touched on this topic a little bit, but care to explain more?
I think it's everything. Schoolhouse, as I mentioned, started out as a volunteer effort and as a project that was a community effort. And so I think, half of what Schoolhouse is maybe a website that people can go onto, but the other half, arguably the more important part, is the community that drives it. Everyone from the tutors and the volunteers to the learners. And, I would just encourage people to, either join the community or ask people in the community, does it feel like a community? And at least when I've talked to many of the people in the community, a lot of them would say, an emphatic yes.
Let's see. This is a fun question. So I know that you met some of the team members in person. I just wanted to know how your experience was because, based on the pictures, it looks like honestly you guys have known each other for like 5 years or like 10 years. Honestly, it looks like that.
So for context, Schoolhouse, just like the platform, our full-time team is also completely virtual. Everyone works from home. We have people from multiple countries. But as you mentioned, a few of the team members have had the opportunity to meet up in different cities, in New York, in California. And it's been very special. I think something I forget about, I used to work in person with people. Now that I work virtually, is that there really are a lot of, there's a lot of value that you get just from seeing it, connecting with someone in a physical space. You remember that they have legs, which is always great. But, the other thing you mentioned is that it seems like we've known each other for a while. In some cases, some of us have known each other before Schoolhouse. But in other cases, it was the first time we were meeting in person, and it was just a real delight.
That's good. I hope to meet team members in person soon.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on schoolhouse.world conferences or at least more meetups in the future?
Yes, we hope to do a bunch of them. There's already been a few cases of volunteers meeting up. We have some policies. We want to make sure it's done in a safe way, that they're done in groups, in public settings with, guardians and adults present if people are under 18. But following those rules, we love the idea of people getting together in person in different cities. And, some of the volunteers have talked about the possibility of, a year from now, maybe even having a conference where we bring together everyone in one location somewhere in the world. And I think that would be really fun as well.
That would be really fun. I just wondering though, do you think that, as people, as team members get to know each other more, like I know we have like, for example, some 16-year-old tutors and some 30-year-old tutors, with those like laws or safety laws, do you think that this could be a little bit more relaxed or something, not just in a public setting? This doesn't have to be, this is just my own general question, but like, do you think there'll be times where the whole community kind of knows each other, knows that everyone's safe to be around, so like, it could be more intimate experience?
Yeah. Is two of the things that we focus on the most at Schoolhouse are, of course, safety of the community and then the quality of the tutoring. And so we have built a really safe community, and major props for that goes to Mariah, who runs trust and safety at Schoolhouse and is every day focusing on how can we have a safe community. And so the policies we have in place are to help keep that safety. But I think you're exactly right that once you can know that everyone in the community is safe, and then we have the proper protocols in place, then I feel like one of the really amazing things is the intergenerational. We have people who span multiple generations. As I like to often say, it's like from age 13 to, late 70s we have on the platform. And not only are people, you know, interacting with each other, but they're learning and teaching each other in all the different arrangements. Kids are teaching adults, adults are teaching kids. And, it's such a great, it helps us remember that life is about always learning, always teaching, and you never end in that journey.
Right. It's like, yeah, you may think you know everything in the world, but obviously that's not the case. Before I started Schoolhouse, I never thought that I'd be working with people, like you said, in their mid to late 70s. I never thought I'd be teaching people who are older than me. I just think it's a really fun experience, especially for those who are younger. It's a great way to kind of, I guess, get ready for the real world or workplace, working with, intergenerational groups.
Definitely agreed.
How has Schoolhouse changed you as a person? It could be for the better, for the worse. No, I'm kidding, not the worst.
I've been thinking about this because I'm writing a year in review right now on my personal reflections. And I realized that as Schoolhouse has grown to, hundreds of tutors and thousands of users from, around the world, that I've also had to grow. In terms of just running an organization, as I mentioned, my role as COO is to make sure that we're able to, fundraise, support a team, build a platform, and really facilitate our, to help foster our mission of connecting the world through learning. And so just the personal growth has involved how to get a team together to align on a mission, how to hire people, how to structure our meetings and everything in between. So I feel like for me, the personal growth has just been to understand how to grow this organization. We're still in the early stages. So every year I expect more and more growth.
Can you please talk about your grad school program and how you can apply what you've learned to your position as a COO and co-founder?
Yeah, my experiences in my own education have been really, there's been three parts to my education. One is I did an engineering undergrad degree, physics and computer science at MIT. Then I studied in the Graduate School of Education at Stanford, and I was in a program in the business school, an MBA program. So those three areas of engineering, education, and business and growing an organization are really the three parts of how we run our organization. Now, we're a nonprofit, so we're not trying to grow profits, but we are trying to grow something that's sustainable, that is based on, the best practices in education and in pedagogy, and that's scalable. And that's why the engineering becomes very important. We have to build a website and a platform that scales. So when I think back to my education, I think about those three parts: the engineering, the education, and the sort of organizational part. And to me, every day, I'm using things that I learned. And really, more important than things or skills, it's been perspectives. When I was in school, I was surrounded by other people from these backgrounds that, now are a part of my perspective of the world.
So what are your own future goals? This could be, towards Schoolhouse and your own personal, like you said, your own educational goals.
Yeah. My goals are to help Schoolhouse grow. I'm all in on this mission of connecting the world through learning. And I think we have the potential to help millions, if not more, people out there in the world. And so, everything I think about is how can I help further those goals?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure, these goals can be easily attainable. Have
Hopefully.
you have you always thought about learning entrepreneurships?
Well, not since I was born. I mean, there was a phase where I became interested in it, but it has been the case for a while. My parents are educators, so education has always been a very big part of my upbringing. I love learning, and one of the reasons why I love teaching is because, I feel like once you've learned something once, you've already experienced that aha moment, so you can't really learn it again. But if you teach someone else, you can relive that aha experience. with them. So I've always loved the experience of doing one-on-one tutoring. And then when I interned at Khan Academy in 2012 and 2013 is when I really started to get interested in this intersection of technology. And I was a programmer with education and education reform. And so ever since then, this has been a passion of mine. And, what I'm able to do now is very much in line with that.
Was education, okay, so speaking, was education your original passion?
It was, yeah, I guess ever since I've had a passion. I mean, the passion I maybe had before was just I love programming, but I didn't know what I wanted to apply programming to. And what I realized with education, the education technology is this is an area that I think is, one of the most important institutions in society for affecting, positive social change and for improving the equity in the world is to do it through the education system. And so the idea of using technology to improve the education system has always fascinated me.
Now, this is another fun question I decided to add, but what are your passions outside of Schoolhouse?
My passions outside of Schoolhouse, if I have a life outside Schoolhouse, is, all sorts of things. I like running. I like biking. I really like reading. Particularly, I like reading nonfiction. Particularly, I like reading biographies. I'm on a streak where I only read biographies these days. So that's been fun. Another thing is I've just spent a lot of time with family over the past few years. And as part of that, I've been documenting a lot of family history, recording, family stories. And that I think that's been a very fun project to just reconnect with like family stories and family history.
Wow, we have so much in common. Just kidding. I'm sorry. I can't ride. I like totally forgot how to ride a bike. Running
Oh,
is fine. So that's
and
why I'm
you,
glad
and
I'm
you
not.
and you like fiction.
I don't like reading.
I see. Yeah.
And then yeah, family stories that I kind of zone out. Well, I mean, no, I don't want to say I zone out, but I don't write it down, but I guess that's why that makes sense to me why you're writing your year in review.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like your own biography.
I like reflecting. That is something about me.
Um, can you describe your experience during your Con Lab school days? I know you said you worked as a software engineer there, and you also worked as an educator, teacher there.
Yeah. Yeah. At Khan Academy, I was doing software engineering, and then at Khan Lab School, which for those who are not familiar, it's a brick and mortar school in California. So it's the students' full-time school. I was teaching algebra and geometry there. And one of the things that I loved, actually, one of my favorite classes I taught there was a class on peer tutoring. I taught it with my friend Phil, and the goal of the class was we weren't going to do any of the teaching ourselves. We were just going to bring the right students together in the classroom where they could teach each other. So all of the students had gaps in their Algebra 1 knowledge, but they had different gaps. And so one student may be able to help another student with one misunderstanding and vice versa. And so we were just facilitating the interactions. And I think that's actually influenced a lot how I think about Schoolhouse, because it's also peer tutoring. And I'm not tutoring all the sessions on the platform, although I do tutor. But it's more about how can we facilitate this network of tutors.
I was gonna say that, yeah, like, so I know recently we brought in study spaces on our platform. So would you say that that class you facilitated is similar to study spaces? Like students hold each other accountable for their subjects.
Yeah, that's a good connection. The idea of study spaces has not yet been built, but there is a wait list that you're talking about. This idea of, in addition to more structured classes, people just want a study room or a library space where they can go and just be held accountable by the people around them, including in a virtual setting in Zoom rooms. And so this is an idea that, we just announced, this wait list a day or two ago. We've seen a lot of resonance with it. And that's exactly the type of thing that you would see in a school like Khan Lab School. And honestly, any school, you have that accountability being around people. And it's hard to get that in an online setting. So we would love to help support people.
It's like if someone's going on their phone while they're online, I wonder how effective it'll be like, stop going on your phone.
So no technology policy, but it's on Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I can't wait to try that myself. Let me get off the wait list.
Amazing. Amazing.
Um, like you said, you obviously don't teach all the sessions or series, but can you describe to me just a couple, like, do you teach sessions or series on this platform? And if so, can you describe what they are and what subjects they are?
Yeah, I have done a fair amount of tutoring on the platform. That's in fact from the very early days. That's how I first got involved, was just being one of the very first tutors when we expanded, to the world. And there was only, a few of us. But now I focus primarily on test prep, particularly SAT. Some people are like, that sounds like the most boring thing ever. Why would you tutor an SAT? Um, I kind of like it. I don't think my high school version would have said that, but I find that, for a few reasons. One is test prep is one of those areas where um, I think there's some of the most inequity of who's able to afford high quality tutoring and who isn't. And you see that if people are able to spend thousands of dollars, they can really improve their scores on these tests. And so trying to provide access to everyone to have high quality tutoring, I think, is one of the most important things in test prep. And so that's part of it. And the other part is I just like the math questions on the SAT. I think they're really fun.
I really like you're like the first part, is very like, you know, it like into it, like in your
The
feelings,
first part's wholesome. The second part is
just like,
just totally like absorbed within myself. Yeah.
yeah, just like I like math.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, so I agree too. I think honestly with you obviously when I took my standardized test, obviously I want to say, oh, I love to do this. I could do this every day in my sleep. But giving this out to others, proctoring exams, it's just really fun to watch people go through this, like the same thing that you did.
Yeah.
And then last question. Well, this isn't really a question, but just do you have a quote that best describes yourself, your personality and the journey that you're on currently right now?
That's I like the way you framed that question. One of the quotes I always go back to is, I think it's an E.B. White quote, something along the lines of, I rise I rise each morning torn between a desire to enjoy the world and a desire to improve the world. That makes it hard to plan the day. And this is a quote that has always resonated with me, because I think there's a lot of things that are so beautiful in the world that just make you want to go on a walk, just go into, the woods and just observe the beauty of the world, spend time with friends and family, and just the beauties, that exist there. And then there's another part that just says, wow, there's so many, horrific things in the world and things we can improve and make better. And we need to get to work. And like, we can't be just sitting around. And I think, it's the same with Schoolhouse. Like we have a strong, desire to bring this to the world, like a free peer tutoring platform. So we're working hard. But then there's also the part which is we just, take a moment to sort of, take a step back and look at the community that has already been built and just how beautiful it is, and just really, admire that for what it is. And so I think there's that inherent tension sometimes. And, to me, life is really navigating that tension.
Thank you.